Siddhant, I have sent certain queries to you in the chat box.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Hiranand, I have
yeah,
received those queries on your on my chat box.
so please take care of those things.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
It is 6 minutes past 10. Aslam bhai?
Yeah. Good morning, Hiral Sutar.
Yes, good morning, Aslam bhai. Should we start or wait?
President Gautam is already here, so let Gautam take a call.
Yeah.
Gautam, over to you.
And Aslam bhai, please conduct the meeting also if you are available for whole time.
Yeah, yes, Siddhant is there. We'll take care.
Yeah, please conduct the meeting. Yeah. That's it.
Gautam, are you there? Gautam is busy on the phone. I have just called him up.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning, Hiralalji. Should we start the meeting?
Yeah, please go ahead. Aslam bhai is conducting the meeting, so please go ahead.
Yeah, Gautam, please go ahead.
All right. All right. Good morning, friends. Glad to see you all to yet another edition of our Rotary and MCWA series, layman series. Of course, you all know what the society topics are. I'm going to take this opportunity to briefly introduce Rotary to you. Rotary International is one of the premier social service organizations of the world, and worldwide there are 1.2 million Rotarians. What are Rotarians? Rotarians are people of action. We volunteer our services for the betterment of society. Our club, Rotary Club of Bombay West, is located in Juhu, and you're probably aware it is known as the Rotary Service Center, where we offer subsidized medical services, loan scholarships, and a lot of other things for the benefit of people. This is one of our avenues of service, as it's called, where we want to educate people and help them better their lives across a variety of scenes. So today, for redevelopment, Mumbai is a hotbed of redevelopment, and it impacts people's lives so much. I mean, to the extent where I personally feel, I mean, we are engineers and PMCs and everything on a personal front, but for Rotary, of course, we are just Rotarians. But the right to having a good flat or a good apartment should almost be a fundamental right, just like a right to education also. So I think the more people are aware about our societies and our apartments and redevelopment, the better our city can become. So this is but a small step towards that direction. And I appreciate all the speakers and Ramesh Prabhuji, of course, for devoting time for this seminar and this knowledge dissemination series. So without taking any further time, I pass the baton over to Hiralalji and Siddhanji to introduce the speakers and start this meeting. If any one of you all have any queries, please feel free to contact the speakers, or If there's anything which Rotary can do to help you all, please let us know. Thank you.
Yeah, Hiranalji, over to you.
Siddhant, please introduce the speakers.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone, to the Layman and Housing Laws webinar series of Rotary Club of Bombay West. Today we have two speakers with us, CA Pathik Shah and CA Hitesh Shah. So I'll thank you, Hiralaji, for giving me the opportunity to introduce both of our speakers. So CA Pathik Shah is a chartered accountant and an LLB, and he is the founder of subsidyandloan.com. His specialty and his areas of expertise are in GST, wherein he has delivered seminars on various types of financing options, government incentives, and subsidy and GST in various forums. He's written a book titled A Handbook on Goods and Service Tax with specific industry provisions and issues. He is a member of the Southern Chamber of Commerce, Surat, member of the All India Mixture Manufacturer Association, Bombay Master Printer Association, Goregaon Merchant Association, Goregaon Estate Agents Welfare Association, Princeton Academy at Mumbai and Chennai, Accommodation Times, and Jito Mumbai Goregaon. Welcome, CA Pathik Shah, to this webinar series of Rotary Club of Bombay West. Our next speaker is CA Hitesh Shah, who is a senior partner at Hitesh Shah and Associates. By qualification, he is a chartered accountant and has completed a diploma in information systems audit. He holds a certificate in forensic accounting and fraud prevention. He is a peer reviewer and a practicing chartered accountant for the last 32 years. He is engaged in statutory audit of listed companies, private limited companies, charitable and religious trusts, branches of nationalized banks, general insurance companies, mutual funds, cooperative housing societies. His areas of specialty are handling litigation with income tax department in direct taxes before the CIT appeals and the IT income tax appellate tribunal. We welcome CA Hitesh Shah to Rotary Club of Bombay West webinar series on layman and housing laws.
Thank you.
Over to you, Hiranalji.
Yeah, friends, it seems Ramesh Prabhu has not joined. So before I say something about this our webinar series, let me clarify that the first speaker will be Sri Hitesh Bhai, who will talk on direct taxes. The second speaker will be Pathik Bhai. He'll speak on indirect taxes, that is GST. And then there will be a combined session of question answer. The chat box will be taken care of by Siddhant Bire, Rotarian. Friends, now let me say something about this seminar series. This series was started during the presidency of our Rotarian Anand Gupta ji, who also happened to be the secretary of the Builders Association of India. And it was started in July, first seminar was started in July 2018. So today is the 45th event of this seminar. Let me tell you, I am very happy to say that many participants, including the committee members, society management, members of the society, and the professionals have been educated through this. Very, very important topics have been taken up from time to time in this webinar. As you know, the today's topic is extremely important, both direct and indirect taxes. So this is the 45th instance of this seminar. Originally, it was started as a seminar, but after lockdown resulting from the COVID-19, we shifted to the webinar. And now, very shortly, possibly we'll be going for a hybrid kind of thing, the physical as well as the webinar. So I welcome you once again on this Sunday morning and request Hitesh Bhai to start his presentation. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, Hiralalji. And at the outset, I thank Rotary Club to give us an opportunity to deliver a talk on taxation of a cooperative housing society, which is always a matter of dispute or maybe a matter which is not known to many of the laymen. So we would like to do that, and I will honor my responsibility casted on me by Hiralalji, and I'll surely educate everybody on the different aspect. which are either a burning issue or maybe not understanding by a common man for the taxation, applicability of income tax to the cooperative housing society. So I'll take you through one small presentation, and we will each and every issues we will try to address on a slide basis. I'll just start my PPT and share. If it is visible, you can just let me know. Things, is it visible or I need to share somewhere?
No, it is not visible in this slide.
Okay. Siddhant, I need to share my screen.
Hiteshji, below your Zoom screen, you will have this one green option called as a share screen.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just click on that. And then you will have your PPT window open. You have to just click on your presentation and the screen sharing will start.
Share will start, right?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah,
Now?
it's now started.
it's
Now it's
coming.
I'll
started.
put it on the slide, right? Yeah.
Now it's started.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah, it is there. It is.
I'll just reduce this. Yeah, that's fine. So let's come back to the issue, which is we are going to discuss in half an hour. Housing societies normally, as you can see in generally, the perception in everybody's mind is that the cooperative housing society is not chargeable to income tax. And therefore, many societies do not bother even to take PAN number or file income tax returns. And this is a wrong perception, since those certain types of income of the cooperative housing societies are exempt. There are other incomes which are chargeable to tax. So we will discuss when the chargeability comes and when chargeability doesn't come. First question is whether a cooperative housing society is liable to income tax and they are required to file their income tax return or not. Obviously, the answer is yes. Cooperative housing society is liable to income tax. It is mandatory to obtain even the PAN number and file regular return of income, ITR 5 they call, under the status of AOP, before the due date of return to be filed every year. And they should also obtain TAN number, that is called as a tax deduction account number, and wherever TDS is applicable, they should pay that also. Now let us see what the cooperative housing society falls under. In the income tax, they fall under a status of AOP. They are considered as an association of persons. So while filing the return, status has to be selected as an AOP. Typically, you identify the PAN number of a society that in the PAN number, the fourth digit will be always A, which A stands for association of person, normal PAN number. And while you file the return, cooperative housing society is considered as to be engaged in the business of maintenance of the property. And you have to select the code, which is called as 23011, which will enable you to claim ATP deduction. So many people complain that from the Bangalore CPC, when our return is processed of the society, we did not get the deduction for ATP and ATP2D because of this wrong selection of the code. Fine. Now let us discuss the tax rates for a cooperative housing society. Up to 10,000, there is a tax rate of 10%. 10 to 20,000 income is 1,000 plus 20% of the excess. And above 20,000, the tax rate is 30,000 plus 3,000 of the base. Now, this was the tax rates prevailing up to March 20. In the budget, some amendment came, and that is section 115 BAD. They have given now option from 21-22 assessment year, that is accounting year which ended on 31st March 2021. They say that you go by 10, 20 and 30% slab and pay surcharge if your income is above 1 crore of 12%. Then option 2, second option, they say that don't go by 10, 20 and 30. You can flat pay 22% and surcharge is 10%. But obviously there are some catch, and the catch is below in my box. There are some deductions which will not be available if you go for second option. Section like 10A, 32AD, 32AB, and of course, for a cooperative housing society, none of this deduction is applicable. But the second deduction, which is very vital, is ATP deduction. That deduction is always claimed by every society. So if you go to option 2, this ATP deduction will not be granted. So ATP includes ATP2D and 2AI and all that. So obviously it makes no sense when there is no income tax. Why should we go for flat 22%? TDS. Cooperative Housing Society normally park their money by way of fixed deposit with the bank, and on that they get the interest. TDS is applicable 10%. Now, if society does not have a PAN, then this TDS will become 20%. So obviously the answer is society should have a PAN number. This is the latest provision which has come in the Act, which says that if society has not filed its income tax return for last 2 previous years on the pretext that they are exempted under the concept of mutuality, then TDS will be deducted at 20% instead of 10% by the banks, which is the new section which has come. So if you do not file your return, then your TDS attractions will be at 20%. So the answer is every society must file its return regularly, even if it is below taxable, no taxable, exempted, whatever it may be. Non-filing of income tax return has one more disadvantage, that is called as what are the consequences when and the penalty for not filing the return. So if you have caught and served a notice, so not filing, there is a penalty for non-filers 5,000 rupees under section 271F. So you must file the return, and you will say that no, we have not seen such kind of things which is happening. Then the examples, though I'm not supposed to, so I'll show you over here. This is one sample notice which is received by one of the cooperative housing society from the income tax department saying that non-filing of income tax returns. After getting this notice, and if you file the return, they will say that you did not file the return, but we caught you, so now you pay 5,000 rupees. Another disadvantage for not filing the return of income. Some people say that is it true that society will not be able to claim the deduction under section ATP 2D for the interest which is earned on deposits with a cooperative bank, and if the return of income is not filed on the due date? Yes, obviously the answer is yes. Every cooperative housing society is required to file its return of income on the due date, and if you skip the due date and if you delayedly return file, then whatever interest you have earned on a deposits with a cooperative bank which is otherwise exempt under section ATP 2D will not be available to you under section 80 AC. So there is a bar. The government wants you to file your income tax return regularly and before the due date if you want to claim all these deductions available, ATP 2D and ATP. Now, as we know, the cooperative housing society does not have a tax liability on the concept of mutuality. What is concept of mutuality? We'll see. A cooperative society is a voluntary association democratically owned and controlled by the benefit of members to pursue economic activities. Cooperative housing society in our country are playing a very special and prominent role in catering to the housing needs of our people. The society is a voluntary association created for mutual help without profit motive. No tax is being charged on the income of such society on the concept of mutuality. So now we'll see once again what is it. Now, concept of mutuality practically says that if it is collected from the member, by the member, of the member, then there cannot be any income in between and among the members themselves. So we read this, a society merely acts as an agent who will collect the charges on behalf of its members, and it will spend on the objects that is same to meet the various joint expenses of the society. Now in this collection and spending, if there is any surplus is left out, so they can any surplus generated due to this type of income which is not chargeable to tax as it is exempt based on the concept of mutuality. The basic principle of mutuality is a mutual association arises when person forms a group, associate together for a common object, they contribute money for achieving that object and divide the surplus among them in the characters. Now the cardinal requirement in case of the mutual association is that all the contributions, whatever we collect on account of the maintenance, all the contributions to the common fund must be entitled to participate in the surplus. So all the participators, that is the society shareholders or members, they do contribute in the surplus as well as they enjoy the distribution also. Now here the concept of mutuality, I would like to just make it clear that in Income Tax Act, there is no section which has prescribed what is concept of mutuality or defined the concept of mutuality, or there is a specific section which says you go and claim under this section, it is exempt. But this has been carved out by various courts of India, including the Supreme Court of India, that there cannot be a profit made by oneself with the oneself. So that is what the concept of mutuality said. So if it is a common collection of the maintenance by the members for the society and surplus is left out, there is no tax. A cooperative housing society is a mutual concern. Income of any mutual concern is except those covered under section 224 Roman 7 of the Income Tax Act is outside the purview of the levy of the income tax based on concept of mutuality. Now we will touch upon, these are the case laws. I will not go in detail because this is a layman's webinar, but these are all the standard case laws available, including the Supreme Court, that is Chelmsford, then the All India Oriental Bank of Commerce Welfare, Apsara Cooperative Housing Society Limited of Kolkata, Valkeshwar Triveni Cooperative Housing Society of Mumbai, Darbhanga Mansion Cooperative Housing Society again of Mumbai High Court, Mittal Court, as the name suggests, it is in Mumbai, Mittal Court Premises Cooperative Housing Society of Bombay, Lands End Cooperative Housing Society of Mumbai, and Lokhandwala Residency Towers of Cooperative Housing Society of the Mumbai. These are all the case laws where it has been held that the concept of mutuality, there is no income tax on the members' collection and profit left out from them. Now we'll see taxability of different ideas. Now taxability of interest charged on the members outstanding. Now, normally in cooperative housing society, there are always, 2 to 5% members are always under the dispute and they don't pay their maintenance on time. So on the overdue or outstanding maintenance, we charge interest. Since the interest is collected from the members, this kind of interest which is received on the members outstanding, whether it is taxable? Answer is no, because interest is charged by the society on the outstanding dues of the members. Again, it is formed part of a contribution from the members only, and this is nothing but collection made from the members by the members and of the members. So mutuality does apply to that. So bearingly, interest charged on outstanding dues to the members is not taxable. Now this is again the big towers, like they have installed the mobile tower antenna on their terraces. Taxability of the mobile tower rent received by them. Whether mobile tower rent income is taxable? Answer is obviously yes, because the rent is received not from the members, so it is not a concept of mutuality. Any rental income from the setup of a mobile tower on the society premises, maybe in the terrace, on parapet, wall, etc., is taxable under the head income from house property. And in that you have a benefit. Every society can claim standard deduction of 30% of the rent received or compensation received under section 24A towards the repairs and maintenance. Now taxability of rental income from advertisement holdings. Again, the concept is same. Whether the rental income from advertisement holdings is taxable in hands of a cooperative? Yes, obviously the answer is yes, because the rental income is received from an advertising agency, not from the members. So concept of mutuality will not apply. This is fully taxable under the head business income or maybe income from other sources, but not under the income from house property. So on this type of income, probably you will not get that 30% standard deduction. Taxability of the rentals from the use of open spaces and terraces. Now, in many cooperative housing society, there is good amount of open lawns available, open spaces are available, or maybe a terrace is available, maybe a community hall is available, which is rented out to the members as well as to the outsiders also to conduct some activity over there. So now these kind of rental income, whether the rental income from the use of an open spaces and terraces, etc., is taxable in the hands of cooperative housing society or not? I have given both the answer that yes, it is taxable as well as not, because if the rentals are received for common use of the open ground or terrace, the point is to be noted whether it is received from members. If it is yes, then it is not taxable. But if it is received from non-members, then it is taxable. So the concept of mutuality, as long as it is applicable only to the rental income received from the members. So if you happen to receive anything from non-members towards the facility or utility provided, it will be taxable. Now, this is again a burning issue, taxability of transfer premium. As you know, in all cooperative housing society, whenever a flat is being sold and transferred, society under the bylaws or maybe section 79A directives of the Maharashtra Cooperative Society, they collect 25,000 rupees. The answer is this is not taxable. Transfer premium collected from the member is not taxable on the concept of mutuality because we have collected from the members. Transfer premium is collected by the cooperative housing society from their members for the transfer of the flats under so-and-so provision of the bylaws, etc., up to 20,000 maximum. However, there are cases in which excess transfer fees collected under the name of Common Amenities Fund is also held not to be taxable. Now, this dispute has arisen in many societies where healthy, wealthy, and filthy rich societies, they do not transfer flat in 25,000 rupees. They transfer flat with minimum 25,000 rupees towards transfer fees, and over and above 25,000, they may collect even 25 lakhs for the betterment of the society, but that goes towards the common amenity fund. There are a number of case laws has been established in Indian courts that even if it is excess of 25,000 rupees under the name of the common amenities fund or maybe sometime donations, it is not taxable as long as it is received from the members. Taxability of transfer premium of 25,000 and any other collection over and above this amount in the form of the donation or contribution towards other amenities funds, etc., is always a subject matter of dispute. Since the income tax department wants to tax on excess of collected amount, which is of 25,000 and above, there is a landmark decision available called as Darbhanga Mansion Cooperative Housing Society, where it has been held that even if it is in excess, still it is received from a member, it will fall under the category of concept of mutuality, and it will be there. Caution is it's a debatable issue, and we have to cautiously word by what name we collect the transfer premium. Taxability of bank interest. Bank interest income derived by the cooperative housing society on the deposits made out of the contributions from members of the society was held not taxable in the hands of the society. Landmark is, however, ATP 2D section is available. That ATP 2D section is very cautiously drafted. They say that any income by way of interest or dividend derived by a cooperative society from its investment with any other cooperative society, and any other cooperative society includes cooperative bank. That is what the income tax department has hold, and therefore the whole of such income is deductible. So there is no limit. So as an advisory, we do advise all cooperative housing society to park their excess reserve fund and all that in a cooperative society, cooperative bank only. The moment they shift their fixed deposits from a cooperative bank to a nationalized bank, ATP 2D section is not available to them, and they will end up paying tax over to that. Let us discuss this taxability of parking charges. So the principle is same. Again, in this case also, point is to be seen whether the collection of parking charges is from members or non-members. In case of collection from the members, they are covered by the concept of mutuality. But however, there are some societies which have a shopping area, shopping complexes down below. Parking charges collected from an outsider who park their vehicles when they come for shopping. Then the society is having a commercial parking, etc. And parking charges are collected from the any other, like non-from members. Then these excess parking charges or maybe parking charges collected from the non-members, outsiders, is taxable. Now let us see taxability of non-occupancy charges. Non-occupancy charges, as you know, when the flat is not used by the original owner, but it is let out, it is given to somebody on a tenancy, leave license basis, and we charge 10% of the common maintenance as extra non-occupancy charges. Now there, the question is, though the non-occupancy charges are being collected from the members only in their periodic bills, the income tax department viewpoint is always that the amount is received from a member who has not been staying in the premises, and therefore he is a contributor and he is not enjoying the amenities of the society, and he is thus not a participator in the common fund. So considering the same concept of mutuality, it is not satisfied, and therefore it should not be, it should be charged to tax. That is what the department has tried. So now department intelligent, they say that the person has let out, and therefore person is not staying in the society. When he is not paying this, that the concept they want to say that the money has come extra and over and above, which should be taxed. So even if this is there are landmark decision of the Mittal Court Premises Cooperative Housing Society available in Mumbai, which says a society has collected non-occupancy charges and the same are not taxable because they still fall in the concept of mutuality, because the payment is made by the member only. Fine. This is again something called as a corpus fund. Taxability of corpus fund has already been a debatable issue for long, but landmark decisions have come up. They say that corpus or the capital receipts on the redevelopment or the sale of an excess TDR is not taxable as capital gains, since there is no cost of acquisition. Following some case laws of the Supreme Court, Bombay High Court has already ruled in Sambhaji Nagar Cooperative Housing Society, and it is being a landmark case. Corpus received by a society on the redevelopment from a developer is not taxable. Again, it is a debatable issue, but we can take this stand, we can fight it over, and it has a good case over to that. Now let us examine certain TDS requirements Cooperative housing society is liable to deduct TDS on whatever payments the TDS is applicable. I have just come up some of the limits. If cooperative housing society has a salaried person, like you can call it as a manager, or maybe somebody who is on a salary basis, then TDS is applicable. The threshold limit is 5,50,000 per annum per employee. Society does pay various labor contract charges payments, works contracts, AMCs, etc., like AMC of the CCTV camera, AMC of the computers, etc. And these all is liable to TDS subjected to threshold that up to 1 lakh rupees aggregate for the year per person, or a single payment to a contractor exceeding 30,000. Say for you have done some repair work and contractor works is more and you are exceeding paying 30,000 rupees per instance, then TDS is applicable. If society is required to pay some brokerage commission, etc., some to tenants 194H, 15,000 per person is exempted as a threshold. Otherwise, 5% TDS is applicable. If society is paying some rent or compensation, etc., up to 2,40,000 rupees per annum, then again there is a per pay per annum, there is a TDS liability is available. Now, these are all the things which we have, the nuances which we may have to take care, because a normal question come, who is going to pay rent and compensation in case of society? But there are some instances where they are required to pay rent. Some equipments are brought or something of that. Then the last item is the professional or technical fees. Of course, your auditor's fees or like consultant fees, or maybe you have done anything where 30,000 per person per year is the threshold. If it exceeds above and that, then TDS is applicable. Now, these TDS requirements, why I am discussing here is because it is a liability, onerous liability cast on the managing committee. So you should not say that TDS was, I forgot to deduct TDS and all that. It should be deducted and it should be paid. This is a tabulated format of the same thing which we discussed in the last week: salaries, labor contracts, brokerage, professional fees, rent, compensation, etc. And these are the TDS which is applicable at the rate of 2%, 5%, 10%, and whatever it is. Now, last questions. This one is that whether the tax audit, which is a common thing applicable to all, these small traders, businessmen, professionals, etc., whether such tax audit is applicable to a cooperative housing society or not. Whether a cooperative housing society is liable to get its books of accounts audited by a chartered accountant under Section 44 AB. Whether the tax audit is applicable or not. Obvious answer is yes. Now, threshold limits prescribed as on today for the tax audit is, if your gross turnover or the gross receipts exceeds 1 crore. So the moment your gross receipts or gross turnover means it includes even the bank interest on FDs, common collections of the maintenance, etc. So your buy side profit and loss account, if aggregate exceeds 1 crore, tax audit is applicable. Now, under the latest provisions of the tax audit, this limit has already been increased up to 10 crore, but with certain terms and conditions. So then if that is satisfied, then you can say that my tax audit is not applicable to my cooperative housing society, even if it crosses 1 crore and goes up to 10 crores. So those things we can evaluate later, but the tax audit is, in general, it is applicable. These are our contact details, which we will share this entire PPT to Mr. Suthar, so he can give it to anybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hitesh Bhai. Friends, let me share with you, Hitesh Bhai is our auditor of our club, and incidentally, let me tell you also that we have received many queries on the taxation of direct taxation on the society income, but most of them, almost all of them rather, have been already covered by Hitesh Bhai. But even then, when Siddhant takes over the chat box and asks the question, the repetition will be useful to the participants. Thank you, Hitesh Bhai. I now invite Pratik to give his presentation.
Yes, sure. First, I share my screen. Hope my screen is now visible to everyone.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Rotary Club of Bombay West, for inviting me as a speaker for today on GST on Housing Society. I thanks to Hitesh Bhai for giving me this opportunity, and also to Hiralji for giving me opportunity to speak on this subject matter of the GST. Nowadays, the GST is very crucial matter for everyone. Now, GST is also applicable on the housing society. So many housing societies are not aware how to comply are they first liable or not? On that they are not aware. So today I will try to throw upon the lights on the what are the provisions, what are the applicability of the GST provision on the housing society. I will try to make it as simple as within the 30 minutes. As this seminar is also called as a layman and housing law series. So I will try to make it as a make you understand in the simple language of a layman. Yeah. So first, starting with the housing society provisions. See, many must have seen that during the service tax, there was so many issues were going on for the housing society, whether the service tax will be applicable on the housing society or not on the basis of mutuality concept. As just now the Hitesh Bhai has specified so many case laws and so many discussion on the concept of the mutuality. Similarly, in the service tax also, this was the going on so many years till the Calcutta High Court. It was went and they decided that no, it should be covered under the concept of mutuality. Service tax should not be applicable, but it was a very late. After that, the GST came. Now under the GST, they have made a certain provisions and certain changes in the act. So the concept of mutuality is still one can argue, but now it is a very much clear changes in the act they have made, in the provision they have made. So based on that, we will understand what will be the now position of a GST on the housing society. So currently for the in the GST, in the definition of a person, they have included clearly the housing society. So now housing societies are considered as a person. So once it is established that it is now a person, so they can take a registration under the GST. They are covered under the GST. Second thing, what they have made is that the under the GST Act, they have specified that the any club, association, society, or any of a such a body of a facility or a benefit to its member is a deemed to be a business. So what they are trying to mean that the if any association or a club or a society providing any facility or benefits to its member, so now they are saying that the now members and society both are distinct person, both are separate person, and anything whatever is provided by the society to its member is considered as a business. So now it is very much that the it is whatever the society is doing the activity for that they are considering as it is a business activity. So they have covered under the definition of a business this part. So it is a very anyone can say now the society are doing for the even for the doing the benefit for the members, it is covered as a business. However, there are certain provisions they have made under which the society can take a benefit, whether they are liable for the GST or whether they are first required to take a registration in the GST. So we will understand all the provisions of that. So what are the, you must be knowing that the now GST limit is up to the 20 lakh for the services and 40 lakh rupees for the goods. But housing society generally providing a service, so we can consider that they are covered under the 20 lakh limits. But under the 20 lakh limits also there is a certain thresholds they have given, certain exemptions they have given. Not it is a that way any like a normal service provider, if you're doing the 20 lakh rupees work and they have to take a registration above the 20 lakh, they have given the one more condition of a to the housing society. So that is also very important. But whenever the here the main thing is that the many society what they think they are very small, they having only 15-20 members, so they might be having not more receiving more than 15-20 lakh 10 to 15 lakhs. But whenever they do the any major repair works, see nowadays many societies are doing the major repair work as the buildings are now becoming old. So in that case they start doing the major repair works like the painting and doing the any big work of a lift. So something like that if happen, and that time you have to check that whether in that year are you crossing the 20 lakh rupees limit or not. So in that case, the first criteria of a 20 lakh you have to see every year that the whether now if I am taking any major work or anything whatever work we are going to do in the society, because of that is that the 20 lakh rupees limit is crossing. Even the small societies they have to do the major repair works, then also it will comes very in the lakhs of rupees. So first we have to see that whether the 20 lakh rupees limit is we are crossing or not in every year. Now what exemption or what additional thing additional benefit government has given for the housing society, because the housing society is also run by the members, so it should not be more burdenous for the members to do the more do the compliance of the society for a very small societies. So for that, what they have specified, that if any contribution is received by from the members is a less than rupees 7,500, and in that what also they have added that the amount is for the purpose of a sourcing of a goods and service from a third party for a common use of its members. Now this is the catch. Now what they are saying, that the amount is for the purpose of a sourcing of a goods and services from a third person. Now how do you identify and how do you bifurcate this? Is that I am doing the work is from the third person for the common use of its member. It is, again they have put a very bold line that you decide, the housing society should decide whether it is from the third person or it is it is done by own themselves. So here for the calculation of a limit of 7,500, you have to check all the parameters, whether are you taking it from a third person or are you doing it as a from own on own. But many times now majority societies are doing from the third person only, generally the like small services of the maintenance or security charges or housekeeping charges, they all do from the third person. So in that case, you have to calculate the 7,500 limit per member. Now here they have made additional thing that if any statutory charges are covered or any statutory charges are collected by the society on account of the property tax, electricity charges and other statutory levies, then it will be excluded while calculating the 7,500 limit. So here we have to see that in each and every whatever the members we are going to collect, normally every housing society makes the detailed bill of every charges what they are collecting from the each member. So in that they give the bifurcation. So that bifurcation is very important to see for the calculation of the limit of 7,500. If it is a in the 7,500, if your bill is going above the 7,500, but you are charging the charges like the property tax, statutory levies or any electricity charges, then you should exclude that amount from the 7,500, and then after you have to calculate the whether the amount is going beyond the 7,500 or not. Again, even if the contribution is more than 7,500 but turnover is again the society is a less than 20 lakh, then also you are out of the GST provision. So again you have to check that limit of the 20 lakh rupees even if you are going beyond the 7,500 limit. Second condition is, as I already mentioned, that the turnover is a less than 20 lakh. Even if the members you are amount is collected from the members is more than 7,500, but the total receipt of the society is less than 20 lakh rupees, then also it is not required for the society to go under the GST law. So here we will try to understand in simple manner how what are the when you will be applicable, when the society will be applicable under the GST or not, whether they can take the benefit of the any of the condition of a 20 lakh or 7,500. See, first case in which the 20 lakh or less means society having a less than 20 lakh rupees as a collection and having a less than 7,500 from the per member per unit. So it is exempted from the GST if both the conditions are met, that they are not required to register under the GST. Now second scenario where they are having a less than 20 lakh rupees annual turnover and monthly maintenance charge per unit per member is more than 7,500, but they're still below the 20 lakh rupees. So again, they are not required to do the registration. Third scenario where the more than 20 lakh rupees is received from the by the housing society, but per member is a 7,500 or less. So again, they are not required to take a registration. Now the fourth scenario where the housing society has to be cautious, they have to see that whether they are liable for or not. So if housing society is getting the amount of a 7,500 more and having a more than 20 lakh rupees of a turnover, then only they are applicable for the GST. So under this scenario only you have to check, because nowadays many societies are worrying about that. Now we are collecting the amount from the member of a 7,500 and more. So are we liable for a GST? So answer is that we have to again check the 20 lakh limits. If it is not you are going beyond the 20 lakh rupees, then you don't have to be worried. that, okay, now we are under the 20 lakh rupees. So we don't have to take a registration. But you have to check that if you are going beyond the 20 lakh rupees and you are taking the per member 7,500 rupees, then you are applicable for the GST. You have to take the GST number and start the GST compliances immediately. One more small example I am trying to give you in various scenarios where we can understand more in detail of the taxability of the GST on the housing society. Example, if there is a contribution per member per month is a 4,000 rupees. So total contribution is, let's say, society is collecting of 18 lakh rupees, but they are also taking the other taxable receipt like a rental income, holding charges. Many society, big society has a holding charges, rental income, ATF, or any other taxable service income. So in that case, again, you have to see that if you are going beyond the 20 lakh rupees, as even though you are not collecting a 7,500 rupees from the member, but still you are going beyond the 20 lakh rupees, and in which your income is a taxable income, then in that case also society needs to take a registration and they will be liable for a GST on the 9 lakh rupees. So you have to be cautious that whatever the outside income, third party income, any mobile towers, if you have given on the rental, or any space is given on rental for the ATM, or any holding charges you are collecting. So all that charges society has to see properly, that if third party income they are generating apart from the whatever amount is received from the member. Some nowadays the many societies has a clubhouse, gym, in which they take the charges from the outsiders. In that case, they allow the outsiders to do the event in the clubhouse. So in that case, if their charges are going, total overall receipt of the society is going beyond the 20 lakh rupees, then in that case, that clubhouse charges, if they are taking from the outsider, then in that case, they will be liable for the GST. So this should be the properly taken, noted. Otherwise, the society may think that we are doing all the whatever the work we are doing for the members, so it should be a purely exempt income, so it should not be counted in the 20 lakh rupees. No, it is not like that. You have to count the whatever contribution you are taking from the members for the limit of a 20 lakh, and above that, if any income is going or exceeding, so in that case we have to see properly whether that income is like a normal taxable receipt, which are the normally liable for the GST, even though there is a housing society is collecting the charges. So second scenario, where the society is collecting only 4,000 rupees from the certain members, and certain members have a bigger flat. So what to do in that case? So if society is collecting the higher charges from the certain members and taking the lower charges from certain members, and the amount from the members, whoever members are there whose amount is going beyond the 7,500 rupees, so on that they have to pay the GST. As we can see in this second scenario, that total amount is going beyond the 20 lakh rupees. So only on the 7 lakh, whatever the excess amount is there, over and above the 20 lakh rupees, on that they will be liable for the GST. Now the third scenario, where the society is taking the contribution per member is a 4,000 rupees, and from the certain member they are taking 7,500 rupees. So in that case, the total contribution from the 4,000 who is paying is only 18 lakh, and from the 7,500 this is 1 lakh, and also society is taking the rental income of around 2 lakh rupees. So in that case, what will be the taxability? It will be the 1 lakh rupees. As that, if it is going beyond the 20 lakh, then it is only on the additional income they have to liable for the GST. So this way, each society has to do the analysis, do the detailed checking of their whatever receipts are there, whatever their amount is they are getting from end of the year. So they have to check whether we are falling under the GST or not. Otherwise, they will be lying up with the GST notices. In the service tax era, you have many societies have seen that they have received so many GST notices every year because of their non-complying with the service tax. They were under the impression that no, now service tax is not applicable based on concept of maturity. But now the GST, they are very much clear that now it is provided for the members. So it is a distinct person, and society is a distinct person. So they are liable for the GST, whatever the amount they are receiving. Now, one more thing, what the government has given the benefit is if the monthly bill is say 9,000 rupees, and the same is on account of a service for a common use of its member. So will the GST applicable on the 9,000 or 1,500, which is in excess of a 7,500? So here again, this is a very good thing which government is giving. In such a case, exemption is available up to an amount of a 7,500, and GST would be applicable on the entire amount of a 9,000 and not on the just the additional amount. So here you have to see that the not the only on the 1,500 we will be liable for the GST, entire 9,000. See, 7,500, it is not like an income tax slab wise benefit they are giving. Like in the income tax, if you have an income up to 2,05,000, then you are not liable for the income tax, and 2 lakh to 5 lakh you will liable for a certain rate of the income tax. It is not like that. In the GST, it is clear that you have a only limit of a 7,500 rupees. If you exceed the by 1 rupee also, then on entire amount the GST would be applicable. So this is the note to be taken where or by all the societies whenever they are charging or collecting the any amount from the society members. So even if any month, in a particular month, they are exceeding the 7,500 rupees, so on that entire whatever the bill they are sending to the their members, you have to see that on the entire bill amount they will be liable for the GST, subject to again the applicability of 20 lakh rupees limit. Again, one more scenario where if a person owns more than one residence in a society, then a separate ceiling of a 7,500 is to be considered, as a second unit also get the individual exemption of a 7,500. Let's take example, Mr. A has a 2 units in a society, and he is getting a, if we combine both the flats total maintenance, then it is going beyond the 7,500 rupees. But if we consider as a one single unit, then it is going below the 7,500 rupees. Then in that scenario, we have to see the only a single flat, whatever the amount is they are getting for the single flat as a maintenance charges, only on that he will be liable for the GST. If it is going below the 7,500, then he won't be liable for the GST. It is not the you have to combine, even though the same name of a person is has on the both the flats. So you have to take a individual exemption of a 7,500 for the calculation of a 7,500 limit. Now another scenario, exemption is available even when the flats are occupied for a commercial use. Nowadays, many society has a commercial shop in the ground floor, or they give the certain areas to the commercial use. So in that case, whether that limit of a 7,500 will be applicable. So answer is yes. In that case also, they will be eligible to get the benefit of a 7,500, even though they are using for it a commercial purpose. It is not like that you should have housing society and you should use for the only residential purpose. It is like that the housing society is there where the majority of members are residing, but only certain area they have given for the commercial use. So in that, even that case also, you can take the benefit of a 7,500 rupees for the commercial use. So even the commercial premises are given on the taking from them also taking the any amount of maintenance, then it is covered under the 7,500 limit. Now we will see various charges which are collected by the housing societies during the month. So on which type of the general charges they have to calculate or covered under the 7,500, and they have to exclude from the 7,500. For the various charges, we will try to analyze what is the reason or what reason behind that it should not be covered. First is like the property tax, which we have collected actual as per the Municipal Corporation of the Greater Mumbai. Generally nowadays the MCGM directly sends to the each and every society member the property tax bills. Then there is nothing to do by the society to collect from the collect from the society member in the maintenance. But some old societies in which still the property tax is totally collected from the society, and they have asked the society to collect all entire property tax of all your units holder and pay to us. So in that case, the society has to see that they are taking the actual charges, whatever the exact amount the municipal corporation is charging or asking to them to pay. So they have to see that the actual should be there, one-to-one correlation should be there, that proper same to same amount should be there. If it is there is a additional amount is taken, then the benefit of this tax part will not be available to you. So you have to ensure that the exact amount you have charging. Then second is the water tax. So same way, water tax, if it is directly collected from the member, then society don't have to worry. If it is the collected from the like a common water charges, so that in that case cooperative society has to pay to the MCGM. So in that case they have to take the exact charges. They have to divide the properly that water taxes. They don't have to say that if water taxes come as of a rupees 10,000 and they divide by, they have a 10 member society, so they have divided 10,000 divided by 10, so exactly 1,000 they are collecting. Instead of 1,000, if they collect the 1,200 rupees, and again purpose of this, it will not be will be suffice. Otherwise, they will be liable for the GST. Non-agriculture tax, in certain areas, Maharashtra state government collect the non-agriculture tax. So in that case also, society will not be liable for the GST. In that case, you have society don't have to count that amount under the limit of a 7,500. So all these three taxes are excluded while counting the 7,500 limit. Then electricity charges. These charges are collected by the society for a generation of electricity by the society generator, or to provide the drinking water facility or any other service. Then such a charges collected by the society are liable to the GST. See, it is for the common use of the members. So in that case, it is providing a certain services that they are doing the work for the members. So it is for the benefit of the member, they are collecting the charges. So electricity charges, whatever the society is charging or adding in their maintenance bill, so it will be liable for the GST. Then car parking charges. See, in this, some members may say that the car parking charges, it is just from the members it is collected and not from the outside the members it is collected. So in that case, again, we can go back to the definition of a business. So in which they have specified, we have seen earlier slide, that in the definition of a business, they have clearly mentioned that the whatever the activity done by the society for its benefit of the member is considered as a business by the society. So even if the car parking charge is collected from its member only, not from the outsider, then also it will be liable for the GST and it won't be covered under the benefit of the 7,500 rupees. Second is a non-occupancy charges. Certain times the many societies collect the non-occupancy charges. So in that case also, even if it is received from the member of a flat, then also it will be liable for the GST, holding charges, ATM charges, or any other rental income received by the society. Then it won't be covered under the limit of a 7,500. It will be only the benefit of a 20 lakh needs to be seen for the holding charges, ATM charges. If the society is receiving more than 20 lakh rupees, including the maintenance of an entire society, then in that case, the holding charges, ATM charges will be liable for the GST without any additional limit of a 20 lakh rupees. Then sinking fund. Now, sinking fund, it is also mandatory under the bylaw of the cooperative society. So in that case, also many members may say, okay, this is covered under the society bylaws, but no, it is not a statutorily. So it is just covered by the bylaws of the society. So what the GST says that in that case also you will be liable for the GST, as the sinking fund is not defined by when it will be used. So in that case, GST says that you have to pay the GST on that, as it is covered under the, it is not covered under the compulsory charges. Then repairs and maintenance fund, sometimes the society takes the provision, makes the provision of a repairs and maintenance, like in the after the 20 years, if the society wants to do the major repair works or want to do the changes in the lift or do the any certain maintenance work in the society, then that time how they will collect the certain amount from the members. They don't want to make a burden on the members to make a collection fully amount on the one shot. So sometimes they make the in a installment, like making a repair and maintenance fund. So in that case also the GST will be applicable on that fund. Then sometimes the society says that if you pay your maintenance by late, then we will charge you the 18%, 24% interest, and they actually charge and they recover from the members. So in that case, on the whatever the late fees, whatever the simple interest they have received from the members on the maintenance fees, it will be liable for the GST. Then the share transfer fees. Again, the share transfer fees, as it is nowadays very common that many society takes the share transfer fees from the members for a transfer of a flat. So these are also taxable, but not also it should be noted that it should not be included in 7,500 limit as no third party is involved. So here again we have to see that the share transfer fees, for that you want to get any benefit of a 7,500 rupees limit. Then after so once you have calculated the entire whatever the taxability of the GST, once you see that your total amount is going beyond the 7,500 rupees and your total receipt is more than 20 lakh rupees, so society would be liable for the GST. So after that, what the compliance to be done by the society? So we will now understand what are the compliance to be done by the GST under the GST by the society once they are liable to register and once they get the registration. So after that, getting the registration, first thing is that the societies are also eligible to take the input tax credit. This is the big advantage, biggest benefit now they have given. Earlier under the service tax, they were eligible for the input tax credit, but only on the service portion. They were not eligible to take the input tax credit on the goods portion or a capital goods. But now under the GST, which is now comes under the as a one single tax, which covers the goods and services, both the things. So now society can take the very good benefit, whatever they make the purchase. So on that they can take the input tax credit, but subject to the current new provisions applicable to the every GST register holder, that it should come under the GSTR 2A. Now what is the GSTR 2A? Whenever you make any purchase, then that purchase should be shown, or that purchase should be available on the GST portal. It should disclose that the purchase you have made from your particular vendor, it is showing under the GST portal. You have to download that particular GSTR 2A. If in that, if you can see that the supplier has shown your bill, then only you can take the benefit of an input tax credit. So whatever the purchases you have made, so on that you can take the input tax credit. But here catch is that again certain expenses like the works contract service, so on that they won't be able to take the input tax credit. But other than that, like if society has purchased a generator, water pump, lawn furniture, or tape, pipe, other sanitary hardware, fillings, etc., then on that they can take the input service. Then they can take the input tax credit. Also on the security services or repair or housekeeping services, on which you will see that there is a GST is levied by the service provider. So that also you can take the benefit. The society can reduce the burden of a GST on the members by properly calculating all this input tax credit. If they are having they have to receive the 18% GST from the members, then in that case they have to calculate whatever the input tax credit benefit they are availing on all these invoices. They can reduce that much amount and they can ask the lower amount from the society member, or they should pass on this benefit of an input tax credit to the society members. So it will be beneficial for the members to have a lower GST burden on them. Earlier in the excise and VAT regime on the capital goods and goods, we are society is not able to take the benefit of the input tax credit, but now under the GST they can take all the benefit, whatever the capital goods they are purchasing, whatever the goods they are purchasing for the benefit of the member or for the use of the society. On that all the things they can take the benefit of the input tax credit. Only condition is that they have to inform to the service provider that okay, our society is registered under the GST and this is my GST number, and based on that please mention my GST number in your invoice whatever you are giving to us. So after that, if they properly mention society GST number on the invoice and properly uploading the details of whatever the purchase made by the society on the GST portal, then after the GST credit easily society can take every month. Now what are the other compliance which needs to be undertaken by the society? One more area is that the reverse charge mechanism. What is the reverse charge mechanism? It means that whatever in certain services, like a goods transport agency service, like a transporter, or if you take any service from the advocate. So in that case, the government has made that whoever receives that service, that person has to pay the GST, not the service provider. Generally, GST is applicable to the service provider. He has to bear, and GST should be paid by the service provider. But instead of for that, for the certain services, government had made the mechanism of a reverse charge, in which if you take the services from the certain type of the service provider, then in that case you have to pay the GST on a reverse charge. So you have many society takes the many times the service of the advocate. So in that case, you have to see that you have to pay the GST on the advocate fees and take the credit in the next month. But certain societies missed out this, and because of that, they have to see the consequences in future at the time of the assessment. Then, whether the societies are eligible for a composition scheme, government has given the composition scheme also. Like if you don't want to pay the monthly GST, or you don't want to file the quarterly returns, then in that case government has given the good option of a composition. But government has not given this benefit to the housing society. Then the housing society has to do the normal, have to go under the normal scheme only. They have to do the every monthly payment of the GST payments to be made, and every quarterly they have to file the GSTR 3B as per their turnover. So societies cannot take the benefit of a composition scheme, and so they have to do the registration under a regular scheme, and they have to file their GSTR 1 and 3B on a regularly monthly and quarterly basis based on the turnover criteria. Generally, all societies having not more than 5 crores turnover, so they will be liable under the quarterly basis filing of a GSTR 3B and GSTR 1. Many societies forget that mentioning of a GST number once they got registered under the GST. So it should be, they have to take a note that once you take the GST number, then on the invoice you should mention the GST number. So, and whatever the GST you are collecting on the invoice, you should mention. So this is the very important thing. Once you register under the GST, outside the gate of the or main society office, you have to mention, you have to show your GST number. Otherwise, for that also there is a penalty of 10,000 rupees if you don't show your GST number. So this small thing, every society should take a note, and they should do the compliances of a GST. Then this is the one latest what judgment government advanced ruling has announced in just last month, that the many times the societies are nowadays doing the repairs and renovation work. Like society wants to do the color work, painting work, or they want to make the wall proper. There is some leakages going on, so because of that they do the repair work. So in that case, whatever the service taken by the society, so generally this type of service are fall under the works contract service. So what are the works contract service? Basically, in that case, the certain services which includes the goods and services, both the parts. So this type of the services under the GST law, they have made a specific provision that the input tax credit of a certain this type of services are not allowed. So in that case, the society has to take care of that, whatever the services they are obtaining for the repairs and renovation. So if they are fall under the works contract service, then it won't be allowed as an input tax credit. So in that case, they have to be cautious that their cost of doing that repair works may increase, as they won't be able to charge the they won't be able to claim the GST, and whenever they raise the bills to their society member, then they have to collect the GST if their amount is going beyond the 7,500 rupees. So society should take a note of that, that if their repairs and renovation they are doing, so they have to ensure that something properly planning should be done, that the services they are taking on that the burden of a GST should not increase for the society members. So with this, I end my presentation. If you have any query or doubt, we can discuss on the.
Thank you, Bhavik. You have nicely dealt with the subject. Many queries have been received on your subject also. I will now request Rotary and Siddhant to take ask the queries received by you from the participants, as well as from directly received. Thank you.
Thank you, Hiranlalji. And it was really a very good session understanding the direct and indirect taxes for the cooperative housing societies by our two esteemed speakers. We have a list of questions that we have received. So the first question is the provision for exemption to members up to 7,500 rupees billing is for third-party services procured by society and provided to members. Sinking fund, repair fund, non-occupancy charges, etc. are the services provided by the society. These are not procured from third party. Please clarify if these services provided society without procuring from the third party will also be exempt, or is there any doubt?
Yes. So I have mentioned in my PPT that for the taxability of the GST on the society, they have made first thing clear that whatever the society is providing any service or any benefit to its member, it is considered as a deemed business. So even if for the whatever the society is taking as a charges like a maintain sinking fund or any parking charges, then they are doing the work for the benefit of the members. So it is considered a deemed business. So even though they are not taken from the third party, still they will be come under the GST provision.
Okay. The next question is if the department disallows deduction under section 80P subsection 2 clause D, what is the remedy? I think this pertains to the Income Tax Act. So
Yes, Siddharth. This query has already been, raised by many chartered accountant, many cooperative housing society holders and all that. Now, basically, first we understand what is ATP 2D. ATP section 2 subsection D says any interest received by a cooperative housing society from the fixed deposits kept with a cooperative bank, it is exempt. There is no limit. Means even if you have received 1 crore rupees interest also, it is exempt. But claiming ATP 2D, while filing the return of income, you have to mention my business code as 23011, which I said. You specify it, and then the ATP 2D will be prompted in your returns to be filed. And once it is prompted, if you fill it out correctly while filing the return, it will be automatically granted by the CPC Bangalore. But basic error or basic schema error which you have kept it while filing the return of income and you have not understood how to fill it, then definitely Bangalore will flush out first, and they will not give you, CPC Bangalore will not give the credit for that ATP2D, and they will raise the demand. Then you have only one option, that you file your rectification rectification of mistake application, you correct your schema or you correct your XML file and re-upload it, you will get the ATP2D section. That is 100%. But the law is very clear. We have to only see that whether you have received the interest from a nationalized bank or a cooperative bank. If it is a cooperative bank, it is exempt under ATP2D up to any amount. There's no limit over to that. Yeah.
Okay. The next one is in case of redevelopment of the society as well as the members get monetary and other benefits. Please clarify the taxability in the hands of the society and members, both in case of monetary and other benefits.
See, we have to specify exactly what benefits they get. Otherwise, generally, I'll try to answer. The non-monetary or monetary benefits are different. Monetary benefits, in a sense, they are getting a hardship allowance by way of the alternate accommodation rent or something of that nature. Hardship allowance, in a sense, if it is given to as an alternate accommodation, compensation rent, etc., then we are of the view that whatever rent is received from the builders by the society members on the redevelopment schemes, it is taxable to the extent you don't spend it on the rent. Say, for example, I have 3 more flats in Mumbai and I don't go for a second alternate accommodation to shift myself when the redevelopment process is taking it. Then whatever money which I am collecting on account of the rent compensation from the developer and I'm not spending, it will be taxable. Now, suppose if I am getting a rent from a builder up to 30,000 rupees for my flat and I am staying in a flat which is having only rent of 20,000, that 10,000 unspent rent will be taxed. That is what it is there. So this is called as a hardship allowance. Now we go to the corpus. Now normally builders, when the redevelopment is taking place, they give some fixed corpus of say some square feet, some 1,500 rupees, 1,000 rupees per square feet. Now suppose I have a flat of 1,000 square feet and 1,000 rupees per square feet is the corpus which is given by the builder. So it is practically 10 lakhs rupees. So when this 10 lakhs comes as a corpus from the builder to the member, we have already clarified in our slide, it is not taxable because there is no cost of acquisition for that. And there are a number of Bombay Tribunal decision, High Court decision has come up. And therefore, on the view of that, you can say that this corpus is not taxable. That is one view which we have strongly advocated. Suppose somebody says that it is taxable. then it will be taxed as a long-term capital gain because you are the holder of a flat on which some rights has arisen and that rights has been compensated to you. So you can take the benefit of 20% tax on long-term capital gain on the corpus fund received also, or happen to say you receive some, you invest into some investable schemes available, then again there is no tax. But we are of the firm view that corpus received by a member from a developer is not taxable as on today. Now the third thing is that non-monetary benefit. Now this I'll explain non-monetary benefit in a sense. Suppose I have a flat of 500 square feet and which is going for a redevelopment of the society, and the builder alternatively gives me 750 square feet. So this 250 square feet extra which builder is giving me, maybe say 35%, 40%, whatever schemes is available, extra area without paying any cost is available to me, whether this will be taxable or not. Yes, the question is yes, it is taxable, but I'll tell you how it is taxable. Whatever extra area is to be quantified. Now that non-monetary benefit we speak because we don't give money, but it is already assessed by way of some stamp duty valuations. So we will say that stamp duty valuation applicable to that extra area of 250 is it is the monetary benefit which alternatively we got it. So you can say that it is a long-term capital gain arisen and deemed to have been invested in a new flat because you are shifting from 500 to 750. So again, it will be exempt under section 54. So you can show that even if the ITO wants to try to tax, then you can say that, okay, sir, I have already offered it as an income. And it is, since it is a capital gain, I have invested in the new house, which is being provided by the builder to me, which is of a 750 square feet. So deemed to have been invested in a new flat under section 54, there is no tax available. Now, suppose you forget, the builder has already given you a 750 square feet flat and you forgot to show it in your return. You are not losing your right, because ultimately that this the registration process will take place and the registration of a document will be uploaded on your AIR. When it comes as based on an AIR some inquiry, then you can always say that, okay, sir, the computation part is again nil, so we are not supposed to. But if you file it carefully in your return of income, probably there won't be any query. So monetary and non-monetary in view of three things: corpus, extra area, and the hardship allowance. These three things are viable. Still, there are some gray area, but if you read through the redevelopment agreement, then you can make out a case. Practically, none of them is taxable. Thank you.
I have an additional query, Hiteshbhai, in this regard. If the builder at the time of redevelopment agrees to fix air conditioners in all the rooms and also is giving a full-size refrigerator, then in that case, these are the benefits which are non-monetary in their nature. So what can be the, can you just clarify the taxability of these under the income tax act?
See, if we stretch it imaginationally, then it is my part and parcel of my cost only. The new flat which is they are giving, instead of giving me some area, they are non-monetized and they are giving me. See, if you say that it is not coming out without any consideration, definitely it will fall for the category of gift under section 56(2)(7), which is now 210 and all that. Somebody gives you a washing machine, electricity, the fridge and the geysers and all that. But these are according to our, we have coined a phenomena which says that completely ready-made habitable accommodation. Now that means the person has to just walk in after the redevelopment. So it is a part and parcel of the residential apartment only. That means builder is supposed to pay me, give me a AC in bedroom, AC in say hall, as well as the washing machine and the geyser, or maybe say water aqua purifier or that. Now if you bundle up all these things, somewhere about 1 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees builder is spending on us, but it is part and parcel of a benefit which is given, which you can add it to that make the flat habitable. So whatever you invest in, like, you know, good old days, people used to buy a coca flat and then they make it a lot of other expenses on like flooring and plumbing and soft materials and all that. So the moment you spend something on making a flat habitable, you can say that this is also an investment on house under section 54 and you can take it up. So there is no need that builder has given me any free. It is not given free. It is your benefit has been curtailed at some extent, and in alternatively builder has provided. But whatever amenity is provided, you can say that it is for the habitable things and all that. Now ITO will always ask a question, Mr. Sai, you tell me how it is habitable. Anybody can go and buy the AC and anybody can go and buy and all that. That's none of it. That is means you have not spent and you have got it free of charge from the builder. We have to advocate a theory saying that if everybody is given a chance to fix the AC, they will fix in at their own whims and wills. But builders tries to give the AC, it will be fixed at only one location. So every flat have an AC at one place and their outer unit also at a one place. So to avoid all this big nuisance in a society, that no matter wherever you fix your AC or outer the unit of the AC, it do not create an the kind of hindrances to the structure of a society. So to maintain a decorum and later on not to have more leakage problem, builders do give. So we have to say that okay, these are the things available, fixed, attached to. Like, if you buy a motorbike and say that मुझे दो side के mirror नहीं चाहिए, मैं अपने हिसाब से लगा दूंगा. That doesn't matter. It is a part and parcel of the flat, so it has to be done. So I am of the opinion that even if it is a non-monetary bit, it is not going to be taxable.
Siddhant, go ahead with further questions.
One more question is that if transfer premium is received from the incoming flat purchaser who paid it when he was not a member at the time of payment, how will be the taxability of this receipt?
Incoming member has paid, doesn't matter whether an outgoing member or incoming member has paid, because incoming member pays the transfer premium so that whatever existing facilities are being provided by the society, it will be again provided to that member in the same condition and in the same structures and in the same forte. So he says that to assure that kind of services, I am paying the transfer premium. So even if, because the moment you add him as a 500 plus 100, like you add it as a member, it will be considered as from a member. It is not a third party that who is not going to become a member. Now, like say advertising and holding and mobile tower, they are going to pay, they were never ever going to become a member of your society. For example, even a bank, nationalized bank where you keep an FD, bank is not going to become a member of your society ever. Now, this member is only an incoming. So for a day, he is not there. The moment your outgoing member has stepped out, next day, he is an incoming member. So after incoming, he becomes a regular member. So again, it can be termed as a only collection from a member. So I am of the view that even if it is from an outgoing member or maybe an incoming member, both the way transfer premium is not taxable.
I have an offshoot of this question, Hitesh. If the bank is a member of my society for the ground floor or office area or the commercial premises, and it's obviously additional facility by way of antenna or whatever other communication equipment installed on my terrace, and the bank gives it to the society by way of additional charges, then in that case, what can be the taxable element?
Same cardinal rule will apply. If bank is being a shop owner or a commercial premise or is a member of our society, then it is collection from the members. So even if it is collection from the members, maybe for rental or everything, concept of mutuality will apply.
Okay. Siddhant, go ahead.
Yeah. I think the next question pertains to the GST, whether interest received from the bank will be included in the turnover.
So it should be interest is a financial activity, so it is exempt from the GST, so it should not be considered under the calculation for 20 lakh rupees.
Do we have to include contribution to sinking fund and transfer fees being collected on the sale or transfer of the flats?
Yes, already as I mentioned that sinking fund, transfer fees is, many members may say that it is a what expenses or what expenditure society is going to do is not definite, or when they are going to do is also not defined. So even in that case, the society, as already mentioned, that society is covered under the definition of a person, and whatever the activity society is going to do for the benefit of the member, it is considered as a deemed business. So both the amount should be considered for the taxability of the GST.
Friends, I have an offshoot of this question. Pratik bhai, water tax is not included, but normally the municipal bill of water charge includes water charges and the tax on that. So which
Yes.
amount exactly will have to take into consideration for the purpose of exemption?
See, water tax, see, as already mentioned that only the taxable, see, MCGM has put a onus on us to collect the tax and not the charges. So generally government may not say that if you are not received taken the charges, then it is fault for the society. But government has given the onus or made the society liable for the collection of the charges of a taxes. So only the tax part you have to be counted for excluding the 7,500 limit, not the water charges you should count. So for the 7,500 limit, water charges you have to consider in the 7,500 limit.
Okay, that means the water charges will be subject to GST on
Yes.
the tax element of that. And secondly, if I regularly getting the water tankers, not from the municipality, but from the private sources, then in that case, what can be the position
Yes,
of
then
that?
so in that case, we have to consider for a calculation 7,500 rupees, it won't be counted under the exemption limit.
Okay, thank you, sir. Siddhant, go ahead.
Where handover and takeover is not been done by the builder, but society has been formed, who will be liable for the GST to take the registration? Here, in this case, the society is a commercial complex.
Yes. See, first of all, the we are housing society, for that only they have giving the benefit of the 7,500 limit for the commercial societies, where all the flats are related to the commercial units or the offices. So in that case, it is no benefit of 7,500 is available. So first the builder has to take the GST number. If he has not taken, then it will be a fault for the part of the builder. Once that is the now hand over to the society, now the society should not continue that fault. They immediately should take the GST number, and from the date when they received the handover, they should maintain the record that yes, we have received this data or details or amount from the builder. From that date, they should start paying the GST. For the past liability, builder needs to answerable to the GST department.
So, Patik bhai, you mean to say that current situation where builders since last 4 to 5 years had not hand over anything to the society, and society has also not taken any handover. Like he is not cooperating. So you mean to say that it will be the full liability for the builder only to take the GST number,
Yes,
not the
yes,
occupier?
yes.
But
See now,
one thing also, currently what they are doing, they have to pay the bills, electricity, security charges, everything. They are collecting the maintenance also. But now who will be the liable to take the number? Because we have to run the show.
Who is collecting, builder or society?
No, society has to run the show. No, like they want security, they want to pay the electricity bill, everything. Otherwise, the commercial premises whole, everything will be in dark.
Exactly.
So if the now society has started collecting, see whatever the past amount is available with the builder, if you have not got the handover, then that is a separate matter. Now the new thing is what you have started is now yourself you have started that taking and doing the service for the society.
1 minute, Patik bhai, I will pause you here. Just they are collecting for day-to-day this expenses, like they are not collecting in the name of maintenance, I can say you. Because builder has not given anything rights to them. अभी 4-5-6-7 members मिलके एक चलो start करते हैं, नहीं तो ये सब बंद हो जाएगा. They have taken the initiative. So it is not actually, I can say, a maintenance. Just they have to run day-to-day basis of their expenses. They are collecting ad hoc amount on monthly basis.
So whatever the amount they are collecting or whatever by the nature they are collecting, see first of all the commercial societies have not benefit of the 7,500. So they have to see that if their total amount is they are exceeding 20 lakh rupees, so they have to be liable for the GST. Now under what name they are collecting? If they are collecting in the name of the, ultimately the check should be received in the name of the society only. Then the society is to be liable and it will be covered under the GST. Whatever the past the builder has done, they are not cooperating or not giving the fund to the society, it will be the matter and issue to be dealt with the builder. But the now henceforth if the society is collecting the amount in their name, in whatever name, not in the name of the maintenance or whatever in the name they are collecting. See, so commercial society, they don't have any benefit of the 7,500. They have to straight away see that if they are taking the more than 20 lakh rupees, like AOP, you can take an example of the AOP. If even any association of person, like there is no society, but 2 or 3 individuals come together and they form the AOP or they form the certain new entity and they are collecting or taking the amount in the whatever name, and once their amount is going beyond the 20 lakh rupees, then they will be liable for the GST.
Patik bhai, with your permission, I would like to add certain clarifications. Say, for example, if the builder is collecting, even after registration of society, builder is collecting maintenance or whatever contribution from the members, I mean the flat owners, then he'll be collecting, he can collect in 2 manners, in the name of society, which he is not supposed to do, and in his own name. When he collects in his own name, it is not coming within the purview of the society's accounts and expenses and all these things. And therefore, in that case, it will not be covered under the liability of the society. Society cannot be held responsible, and it is vis-a-vis owner to developer, owner to developer, and not owner to society, member to society. So we have to understand that in which manner the contribution is being collected. It is being collected in the name of society, or is it being collected in the name by the builder, be it maintenance also or be it any other things.
Yes, correct. So if the builder is collecting any amount in the name of the maintenance, so he again don't have a benefit of a 7,500. Builder is collecting any amount from the society member, housing society, even the housing society, the builder is collecting any amount, so he will be liable for the GST. So he
Yes,
has to
correct.
pay the GST on whatever amount he is collecting from the member under the whatever name. So he will be liable. Only the benefit of 7,500 is available to the society. Now the society
Society.
is collecting the amount, then only they have to see the 7,500 limit and 20 lakh rupees limit. Otherwise, the builder, whatever he is doing activity, it is not covered under the any of the exemption criteria.
One additional query I have, Pratik bhai. There is not a housing society, but the premises society. And within the premises societies, apart from the commercial, there are a few flats also. And they are sanctioned for the residential purpose. In that case, what can be the taxability in the hands of, because that exemption is given to housing societies only about 7,500.
Yes.
This society is not a housing society, but the residents are using it for residence because it has been accordingly sanctioned by the BMC. Then what, can you just throw some light on this?
So see the what the Housing Society Act says, the housing society means a society the object of which is to provide its member with the open plots for a housing, dwelling housing or a flats, or if open flats, the dwelling houses or a flats are already acquired to provide its members the common amenities and services. So they have very much clear that housing society word with that, as per the we have to go to the act of the cooperative housing society. So in that cooperative housing society, in the definition of the housing society, they have clearly mentioned the purpose should purely for the housing purpose. So we have to see that if it is not fulfilling, or the whatever the premises are that they are not registered under as a housing society under the cooperative housing society, then they won't get the benefit of the 7,500 limit. They have to straight away go as a under the other rules, and they have to fulfill the criteria of the other act of the GST. So they won't get the benefit of the housing society. They should be registered as a housing society under the cooperative act. Then only they can get the benefit of a 7,500 rupees.
Yes, then any query remains now, because we are exceeding the time by.
I think we'll just take one last question, and I think the other questions we will send a list of questions to the speakers, and we'll take the answers from them via email and WhatsApp. And I think we'll pass on the replies to all those questions via onto the various groups. So one last question is GST applicable on donation or voluntary contribution by members for any specific or general purpose?
Yes. So the 7,500 limit, again I will specify that it is given for the whatever the service is to be procured from the third person. For that the society is collecting the amount, for that they are giving the benefit of 7,500. Now the voluntary contribution or whatever donation the society is going to receive, it is not for the benefit of, or not to be done from the third person or something. So in that case, that amount will directly fall under the criteria for 20 lakh rupees. If the society is collecting a total amount more than 20 lakh rupees, take an example that the total maintenance is 18 lakh rupees, and they have received the 4 lakh rupees donation. Then on the additional amount of above the 20 lakh rupees for the amount of donation, society will be liable for the GST.
Okay, I think Hiranlalji, we are done with the set of questions.
Now I will request Shefali to propose well-deserved vote of thanks, and then we'll pose these questions to the speakers, additional questions, and I request them to answer if possible, to the extent possible, so that we can forward the same in the various groups of our club. Okay, thank you, friends. Shefali, please propose. Shefali, I think she has to unmute herself. Friends, it seems, friends, I will, it is in fact, I feel privileged to propose a very hearty vote of thanks. Both the speakers have dealt with the subject very much in depth, and honestly, we are leaving this webinar keeping lot many other questions pending. I'm aware Siddhant has many questions with him, but well done, both the speakers, Hitesh Bhai and Pathik. Thank you very much for joining and helping our club educate the people. Thank you very much. Thanks. We close the meeting with this.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.